The sterile lights of the emergency room hummed overhead as sharp pain radiated from my twisted knee. "Hold that exact position and don't move a muscle," the nurse said in a calm, authoritative voice as he adjusted the imaging plate. Then leaned closer, so only I could hear, "But I can tell this isn't your first time hiding how you really feel, Ryan." His words hit like a second crash. I stared at him. Jordan Ellis, according to the tag on his blue scrubs. He was maybe 30, same as me, with dark hair cut short, steady brown eyes, and a quiet confidence that made the chaotic ER feel momentarily still. How could a stranger see what I'd buried for years? The accident had been stupid. A rainy night on I-5, my mind somewhere else, and now here I was 29, successful in Seattle marketing, still pretending the pull I sometimes felt toward men was just stress or nothing at all. My family back in Chicago would never understand. Dad still bragged about the day I'd man up and settle down with a nice girl. Jordan straightened, professional again, but his glance lingered a beat longer. "X-rays done. You did great. Let's get you to a room and talk about next steps." In the curtained bay, he checked my vitals, his touch efficient yet somehow reassuring. "I'm Jordan, by the way. Been in the ER long enough to spot when someone's carrying more than bruises." I laughed nervously, the sound shaky. "That obvious?" He smiled, small and genuine. "Only to someone who's lived it." We talked while he wrapped my knee. Nothing deep, just how the rain made roads slick and how Seattle winters tested everyone. But every word carried an undercurrent. When he handed me discharge papers, he added his number on the back. "Follow up in a week. Call if the pain gets worse or if you just need to talk." I pocketed it, heart thudding harder than the injury warranted. Driving home in a rideshare, knee throbbing, I replayed that whisper. For the first time in years, someone had named the thing I denied. I stared at the city lights blurring past and wondered if hiding was still possible. The next morning my phone buzzed. "Jordan," checking in. "How's the knee?" I sit 20 minutes on, 20 off. Simple, professional. Yet I found myself typing back more than necessary. By the third text exchange, we were laughing about bad hospital coffee. I told myself it was just friendly. But when I closed my eyes that night, it was Jordan's steady gaze I saw. Not the accident, not my father's expectations, not the version of Ryan Thompson I'd spent a decade building. Something inside me shifted, small but undeniable. For the first time, I didn't push the feeling away. Work blurred the next days. My boss praised the new campaign, but my mind kept drifting to that ER room. Friday evening, I limped into a quiet cafe near the hospital, pretending it was coincidence. Jordan was off shift. He walked in 10 minutes later, spotted me, and smiled like he'd been hoping I'd be there. We talked for hours about Seattle rain, bad first jobs, the way families sometimes build walls without realizing. He didn't push. He just listened. And when he said, "You don't have to figure it all out tonight," something cracked open in my chest. By the time I hobbled home, the city felt different, lighter, scarier. I stood at my apartment window overlooking Puget Sound and whispered to the dark, "What if I'm not who I thought I was?" The question hung there, unanswered but no longer terrifying. Jordan had planted the seed. Now, it was growing whether I was ready or not. The follow-up appointment arrived faster than I expected. My knee had improved, but the restlessness inside me hadn't. I sat in the clinic waiting room, flipping through a magazine I wasn't reading, when Jordan appeared in the doorway. "Ryan Thompson?" His voice carried that same calm steadiness. In the exam room, he checked my range of motion, fingers gentle on my skin. "Healing nicely. Keep up the exercises." Then he paused, chart in hand. "How are you, really?" I hesitated, then the words spilled out, how my parents still called every Sunday expecting updates on my social life, how my best friend Mike kept setting me up with women, how I dated Sarah for 2 years just to prove I could. Jordan listened without judgment. "I came out at 21, he said quietly. "Lost a few friends, almost lost my family. But the weight I carried before, gone." We left the clinic together and ended up at a food truck by the waterfront. Over fish tacos, he told me about growing up in a small Oregon town, the church that turned its back the nights he cried in his car. I told him about Chicago Thanksgivings where Dad toasted real American values, and Mom changed the subject when anything remotely personal came up. For the first time, I admitted out loud that the thought of kissing a man didn't scare me. It excited me. Jordan's eyes softened. That's a brave thing to say. Days turned into weeks. We texted daily, met for walks in Discovery Park when his shifts allowed. He never rushed me. One evening, rain pattering on the roof of his old Jeep, he said, "You don't owe anyone your truth until you're ready. But you also don't owe them a lie." I stared at the windshield wipers and felt tears I hadn't expected. Work became harder to focus on. My boss noticed I seemed distracted. Mike, my roommate from college days, cornered me one night. "Dude, you've been weird since the accident. Everything okay?" I almost told him. Almost. Instead, I changed the subject. Thanksgiving loomed. My parents booked flights to Seattle, the first time they'd visit since I moved. Dad wanted to see how his boy was doing. The pressure settled like lead in my stomach. Jordan noticed during one of our late-night calls. "I'll be here if you need backup," he said simply. No demands, just presence. That night, I lay awake realizing the difference between someone who wanted to fix me and someone who simply stood beside me while I figured it out. Christmas lights went up along the waterfront. Jordan and I grabbed hot chocolate after his shift. Our hands brushed, reaching for the same cup. Neither of us pulled away. The city sparkled around us, and for the first time the future didn't feel like a cage. It felt like possibility. My parents arrived the week before Thanksgiving. Mom hugged me too tight. Dad clapped my shoulder and immediately started grilling me about work promotions and whether I'd met anyone special. I smiled through it, introduced them to Mike, kept everything surface level. Jordan texted encouragement. "You've got this. One day at a time." The night before the holiday, Mike and I grabbed beers. Halfway through his second pint, he said, "You've been hanging with that nurse guy a lot. Jordan, right? He gay?" The question landed like a punch. I froze. "Why does it matter?" Mike shrugged. "Just wondering. You two seem close." I changed the subject, but the seed of unease was planted. Thanksgiving dinner at my apartment was tense. Dad carved the turkey and launched into his usual lecture about family values. Mom kept asking when I bring a girl home. I felt Jordan's words echoing. Don't owe them a lie, but the words stuck in my throat. After dessert, I slipped out to the balcony and called him. "I can't do this," I whispered. He answered without hesitation. "Then don't. Come over after they leave." No pressure. I made it until Saturday. My parents flew home Sunday morning, Dad still hinting I should move back to Chicago. The moment their Uber left, I drove straight to Jordan's modest apartment in Capitol Hill. He opened the door in sweats, hair messy from sleep, and simply pulled me into a hug. We sat on his couch for hours. I talked until my voice gave out. He listened, then shared his own story of the boyfriend who left when coming out got too hard. I almost went back in the closet, he admitted. But then I realized living half a life hurt more than any rejection. That night we fell asleep on the couch, fully clothed, his arm around my shoulders. No rush, no expectations, just safety. Monday at work, I felt lighter. Mike noticed. "You look different, man. Good different." I almost told him then. Almost. The misunderstanding came 2 days later. Mike saw Jordan drop me off after a movie. Later he cornered me. "Dude, are you with him?" The way he said it, half curious, half uncomfortable, made my stomach drop. I panicked and said, "We're just friends." The lie tasted bitter. "Jordan sensed the shift when we met for lunch." "You okay?" I nodded too quickly. Inside, the old fear roared back. What if Mike told my parents? What if work found out? What if I lost everything I'd built? That weekend, Jordan suggested a hike in the Cascades. The trail was quiet, snow dusting the evergreens. Halfway up, he stopped. "I'm not going anywhere, Ryan, but I need you to be honest with yourself first." I looked at him, wind in his hair, eyes full of patience, and felt the walls crack again. "I think I'm falling for you," I whispered. He smiled, soft and real. "Then let's fall together. Slowly. Safely." We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The promise was enough. The rumors started small. Mike mentioned something to a mutual friend at the gym. By Wednesday, my coworker Lisa asked if I was seeing someone new. I brushed it off, but the whispers followed me. Thursday, my boss pulled me aside. "Everything okay at home? You seem distracted." I assured him I was fine, but the anxiety gnawed. Jordan noticed immediately. "You're pulling away again." We were at his place, rain drumming the windows. I admitted Mike's reaction and the office gossip. Jordan's face tightened. Not anger, but understanding. "I've lost jobs over less, but I've also gained a life I'm proud of." He told me about the hospital administrator who'd made his life hell after he came out, how he'd almost quit nursing. I stayed because helping people through their worst moments reminded me why I fought to be me. That weekend my phone rang, "Mom. Your father heard something from Mike's mother." "Ryan, is there anything you want to tell us?" The line went silent. I hung up shaking. Jordan held me while I cried for the first time in years. "They deserve the truth when you're ready to give it," he said. "Not rumors." The betrayal cut deep. Mike showed up at my door Sunday, defensive. "I was worried about you, man. Thought you were going through something." I stared at the friend I'd trusted for a decade. "You outed me to my parents?" He looked away. "I didn't mean." The door closed between us. Jordan took the week off. We drove to the coast, rented a tiny cabin. No pressure, just space. Walking the beach at dusk, he shared the story of his first love who'd chosen family approval over him. "I swore I'd never ask anyone to choose me over their peace," he said, voice low. "But I also won't hide anymore." I took his hand. The waves crashed, and for the first time, I understood sacrifice wasn't always dramatic. It was choosing to stand beside someone when the world tried to pull you apart. Back in Seattle, the confrontation came. Dad called, voice tight. "We raised you better than this." Mom cried in the background. I hung up, chest hollow. Jordan was there, silent support. That night he whispered, "You're not alone." And for the first time, I believed it. The holidays brought everything to a head. My parents announced they were flying out again, to talk like adults. Jordan offered to be there. "Only if you want." I wanted. Christmas Eve they arrived, faces drawn. Dad started the moment coats were off. "This nurse friend of yours, is that why you're throwing your life away?" The argument lasted hours. Mom begged me to think of the family. Dad threatened to cut me off financially, though at 29 I didn't need it. I stood my ground, voice shaking but clear. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally living." Jordan sat beside me, calm, respectful, never speaking unless asked. When Dad turned on him, "You did this to my son," Jordan answered quietly, "No, sir. Ryan did this for himself. I just showed him it was safe to." They left the next morning without hugs. The silence in my apartment afterward was deafening. Jordan stayed. He made coffee, sat with me on the couch. "Let me grieve the version of family I'd lost. They might come around," he said, "or they might not. Either way, you're still you." Work suffered. A client meeting went sideways. My boss suggested I take personal time. I did. Jordan and I spent New Year's at his apartment. Simple dinner, board games, midnight kisses that felt like coming home. No fireworks, just quiet certainty. Then the sacrifice moment arrived. Jordan's hospital was short-staffed. A new policy quietly discouraged personal entanglements with patients, even former ones. He risked a write-up by continuing to see me openly. One night, he came home exhausted. They suggested I transfer units. I offered to step back. He refused. "I've lost enough to fear. Not losing you too." In February, my mother called alone. "Your father's struggling, but I miss my son." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a crack. Jordan squeezed my hand while I talked. The road ahead was still long, but the weight felt shared. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms along the streets. My knee had healed months ago. The rest of me was still mending. Jordan and I walked Alki Beach on a Sunday, hands brushing, no longer hiding. He'd taken the transfer without complaint, better hours, same purpose. I'd started therapy, learning to name feelings I'd buried. Mike reached out with a clumsy apology. I met him for coffee. He admitted fear had made him stupid. I just want my friend back. We weren't the same, but the door wasn't slammed shut. Small steps. My parents sent a card on my birthday. No lecture, just "We love you." Jordan read it over my shoulder and smiled. See, doors don't always stay closed. One evening in June, we attended a small pride gathering in the park. No big parade, just friends, music, and rainbow flags. Jordan introduced me to his chosen family. Nurses, teachers, the barista who always saved him the good pastries. I stood among them, no longer pretending, and felt whole. Later, on his balcony overlooking the city lights, Jordan turned to me. "Remember that ER night?" I laughed. "How could I forget?" He took both my hands. "You looked at me differently then." I've been falling in love with that look ever since. I kissed him, soft, sure, full of every unsaid promise. The journey hadn't been neat. There were still calls from Chicago that left me raw, still days I second-guessed everything. But there was also this, a man who saw me, loved me, and never asked me to be smaller. Standing there with Seattle sparkling below, I understood the real victory wasn't the acceptance of others. It was the acceptance of myself, true or false. Hiding who you truly are is the best way to protect the people you love.